Juliet was just a tiny baby when she was left on the cold doorstep of Mrs. Grace's house. It was dark and rainy that night, and the wind howled loudly as a little bundle was placed gently at the steps. Mrs. Grace, a stern and harsh woman, opened her door and saw the tiny, shivering baby. "What is this?" she muttered, angry and confused. She looked around but saw no one. Without a second thought, she pushed the baby inside and closed the door. Juliet's tiny fingers clung to the cold wooden surface, unaware of her future fate. Days passed, and Juliet grew up in a small, dark room. Mrs. Grace raised her like a servant, never showing her love. Juliet was often hungry and cold, but she was also kind and gentle. Meanwhile, Bella and Nina, Mrs. Grace's own daughters, lived like princesses, wearing fine clothes and eating the best food. Juliet watched them sometimes with sad eyes, dreaming of a different life. But she knew she was different, an unwanted girl in a house full of harshness and rejection.
Hello, dear viewer. Welcome to Echoes of Chivyne. Before we dive into today's story, we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel or follow our page, like this video, turn on your notification bell so you never miss an update. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story.
Every day was a struggle for Juliet. She cleaned the house, fetched water, and did chores from dawn till dusk. Mrs. Grace never smiled at her, only scolded her for the smallest mistake. Bella and Nina often teased her, calling her the orphan and the trash. Juliet's heart felt heavy, but she kept quiet, hoping someday things would change. One day, Juliet looked at her reflection in a broken mirror. She saw a girl with bright eyes and a kind face, despite her ragged clothes. She whispered softly, "One day, I will be happy. I will find my place." Though her voice was small, her hope was strong. Little did she know that her life was about to take a turn, one that would lead her from suffering to a destiny she never imagined. As Juliet grew older, her beauty became clear to everyone. Her skin was smooth, her eyes bright, and her smile rare but genuine. But instead of admiration, her beauty made Mrs. Grace furious. "Why are you so pretty?" "It's unfair," she sneered, grabbing Juliet's arm roughly. Bella and Nina laughed cruelly. One day, Juliet's beauty caught the eye of the village healer, who visited Mrs. Grace's house. "She's very lovely," the healer said softly. Mrs. Grace's face twisted with anger. "What use is beauty if she's just a servant? No one will want her," she snapped. Juliet heard her words and felt tears sting her eyes. But deep inside, she refused to let her spirit break. She knew her beauty was a gift, and someday, it would help her find happiness. Mrs. Grace started to plot in secret, whispering with her daughters. "Juliet must go. She's too beautiful and kind. People might take her away from us," she hissed. Bella and Nina nodded eagerly. "Yes, she's making us look bad. We should get rid of her." One evening, Mrs. Grace called Juliet into the yard. "Juliet," she said coldly, "you are not one of us. You are a burden. I've decided, you're leaving." Juliet's heart pounded. "Where will I go? I have no family," she whispered. Mrs. Grace smirked. "You will be sold to the village outcast. Maybe he needs a servant." Juliet's eyes widened with fear. She knew her life was about to change forever, she just didn't know how dark that change would become. The next morning, Juliet was taken to the village square. Calvin, a rough man with a scarred face, waited there. "You're sold," Mrs. Grace said coldly. Juliet looked at Calvin with big, frightened eyes. The villagers gathered around, whispering and pointing. Some laughed, some mocked her. Calvin didn't speak much. He simply looked at Juliet with tired eyes, then nodded. Juliet was pushed into a small hut, surrounded by jeers. "What kind of life is this?" she thought, tears falling silently. Calvin handed her a bowl of water and a piece of bread. "Eat," he said softly, surprising her with his gentle voice. Juliet felt a strange warmth in her heart, even amid her pain. She didn't know it yet, but Calvin was about to change her life forever. That evening, the villagers returned to mock Juliet and Calvin. Look at her, the orphan, they jeered. She's nothing but a servant now. Juliet tried to hide her tears, but her heart was breaking. Kelvin sat beside her, silent. Suddenly, Mrs. Grace arrived with Bella and Nina. Juliet, you're lucky to be with this nobody, she sneered. You're better than her, Bella. Bella rolled her eyes, and Nina crossed her arms. Juliet looked down, feeling small and worthless. But Kelvin gently touched her hand. Don't listen to them. You're stronger than they think, he whispered. Juliet looked up at him, surprised. For the first time, she felt a flicker of hope, even in her darkest moment. That night, Juliet sat on a rough mat, her heart heavy. She looked at Kelvin, who seemed lost in thought. Why did they do this to me? She whispered softly. Kelvin shook his head. They don't understand. You're special, Juliet. You just don't see it yet. Tears rolled down Juliet's cheeks. I feel so useless. I can't even change my life, she cried. Kelvin moved closer, holding her hand gently. Sometimes, it's not about changing everything overnight. It's about surviving and believing that someday, things will get better. Juliet looked into his eyes and nodded slowly. She knew her journey was just beginning, and she would need all her strength to face what was ahead. The next day, Mrs. Grace came to Kelvin's hut with a big pot of hot soup. Eat this, girl, she sneered, pouring the steaming liquid onto Juliet's lap. Maybe now you'll learn your place. Juliet flinched as the hot soup dripped down her clothes. The villagers gathered, laughing at her humiliation. See what happens to the worthless, Mrs. Grace said loudly. Juliet's eyes filled with tears as she looked at Kelvin. He clenched his fists but said nothing. Instead, he whispered to Juliet, ignore them. You're better than their words. Juliet nodded, her heart aching but also strengthening. She knew she had to survive, no matter how much they tried to break her. The next morning, Kelvin heard Juliet crying quietly in her corner. He gently shook her shoulder. Juliet, don't let them see you broken, he whispered softly. Suddenly, a group of villagers came to the hut, shouting and pointing. Take her away. She's no good, they yelled, grabbing Juliet's arms roughly. Kelvin tried to stop them, but they pushed him aside. Juliet was dragged out of the hut, her head bowed low in shame. She felt humiliated as everyone watched her. The villagers jeered and laughed as she was taken away, an outcast once more. Kelvin's heart ached to see her like this. He followed secretly, determined to help her find her strength again. Juliet stumbled, tears in her eyes, but deep inside, her resolve grew stronger. She refused to let their cruelty define her. Kelvin found Juliet sitting alone near the river, her shoulders trembling. Quietly, he sat beside her. Juliet, he said softly, you're not what they say. You're stronger than this. She looked at him, surprised by his kindness. No one had spoken to her like that before. I've never had anyone be gentle with me, Juliet admitted softly. Kelvin reached out and held her hand. You don't need to be afraid anymore. I see you for who you truly are, a brave girl with a kind heart. Juliet looked into his eyes and felt a warmth she had never known. For the first time, she believed someone saw her worth beyond her pain. That night, Juliet sat by the fire, staring into the flames. She whispered, I am nothing. Just a useless girl nobody wants. Kelvin sat beside her, holding her hand tightly. Don't say that, he said firmly. You are special, Juliet. You are more than what they say. She looked down, tears in her eyes. How can I be special when everyone hates me? She asked. Kelvin smiled gently. Because you are kind, brave, and true. That's what makes you special. And someday, everyone will see that. Juliet listened quietly, feeling a flicker of hope ignite inside her. She knew her journey was far from over, but maybe, just maybe, she could find her own way. One day, Kelvin finally revealed something startling. Juliet, he said quietly, I'm not a poor man, neither am I a cripple. I'm actually a prince in disguise. Juliet's eyes widened. What? You're a prince, she exclaimed. Calvin nodded. Yes, but I left the palace because I wanted to see if I could be a good man without my crown. Now, I want to help others, especially you. Juliet stared in shock. Why didn't you tell me before, she asked. Calvin shrugged. I wanted to see if you were kind and honest, not because of my title. But now, I want you to know the truth. Juliet's world shattered. She had trusted Calvin, and now she felt betrayed. Calvin looked down, regret in his eyes. I wanted to protect you, he said softly. Juliet felt a deep pain but also a fragile hope that her true strength would come from standing tall despite these betrayals. Juliet felt her heart race. She never imagined that her humble friend was actually a prince hiding his identity. Maybe, her life was about to change forever. Calvin finally explained, Juliet, I wanted to see if you'd still be kind to me without my crown. I was testing your heart. Juliet looked away, tears in her eyes. I thought you cared, but you kept your secret. I feel so stupid, she whispered. Calvin reached for her hand. I'm sorry. I thought I was protecting you. I never meant to hurt you. Juliet took a deep breath. Maybe I was naive, but I trusted you. Now, I don't know what to believe. Calvin looked at her with sorrow. I swear, I am still the same person. I just wanted to see if your heart was pure. It is. Juliet hesitated, then nodded. Though her heart was bruised, she knew she had to find her own strength to face whatever was coming. Slowly, Juliet began to forgive Calvin. Maybe I judged too quickly, she said softly. Calvin smiled gently. We all make mistakes. But I promise, I'll always be honest with you now. Juliet looked at him and saw a genuine regret in his eyes. They spent days talking, sharing their hopes and fears. Juliet realized she wasn't alone anymore. Calvin's kindness was a light in her darkness. Though trust was fragile, she felt her heart healing little by little. Thank you, she said quietly. For being honest now. Calvin nodded. From now on, I will always be truthful to you. You deserve that. Deciding to leave the village, Calvin and Juliet planned to go to the palace. Are you sure? Juliet asked nervously. Calvin took her hand. Yes. You deserve a better life. A life where you're loved and respected. They packed what little they had and set out at dawn. The journey was long and difficult, but Juliet felt stronger than ever. With Calvin by her side, she believed she could face anything. She whispered, this is the start of my new life. I will find my place, no matter what. And so, they moved forward towards their destiny, towards the palace and her future as queen. After days of travel, they finally arrived at the grand palace. Guards welcomed them, and Juliet was awestruck by its beauty. She looked at Calvin, who smiled softly. You're about to become part of something bigger, he said. Juliet nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. As she entered the palace, she saw halls filled with shimmering lights and people bowing. She was led to a throne room where the king, Calvin's father, waited. Juliet, Calvin announced, this is the girl I promised to protect. She's brave and kind, and I want her to be my queen. Her heart pounded wildly. She had come from nothing, but now she was about to become royalty. Back in the village, news spread quickly that Juliet was now queen. The villagers whispered among themselves, surprised and jealous. She came from nothing, one said. How can she be queen? Asked another. The news reached Mrs. Grace and her daughters, Bella and Nina. Their faces twisted with anger and envy. Why did Calvin choose her? Bella hissed, clenching her fists. She's just an orphan. Nina added. Mrs. Grace's eyes gleamed with fury. We will make her regret this, she vowed. But Juliet, safe within the palace, was unaware of their plotting. She was busy adapting to her new role, determined to prove she was worthy of her throne. One day, Mrs. Grace and her daughters finally confronted Juliet in the throne room. You don't belong here, Mrs. Gray spat. We demand you step down and let us take your place. Juliet stood tall, her voice steady. I am queen because I earned it, not because of blood or money, she said firmly. You tried to hurt me, but I won't let jealousy destroy what's right. Mrs. Grace's face twisted with fury. You think you're better than us? We'll see about that, she hissed and turned to leave. Juliet felt a surge of pride. She had faced her past and stood strong, she was truly ready to rule. Mrs. Grace's envy boiled over. She and her daughters planned to overthrow Juliet. They hired spies to gather secrets and spread lies. But Juliet's advisors uncovered their plots. They are jealous, her trusted counselor warned. We must be careful. One day, they confronted Mrs. Grace directly. Your tricks won't work, Juliet said calmly. You're angry because you lost control. But I am your queen, and I will protect my people from your schemes. Mrs. Grace's face turned red with rage, realizing her plans had failed. She stormed out, her pride wounded. Juliet dressed in her finest gown and addressed her court. I know what you've been doing, she said softly. Jealousy makes people do silly things. But I want peace, not hatred. Her words silenced the room. You were wrong to try to hurt me. I forgive you, but I won't forget. Mrs. Grace, watching from the shadows, felt a sting of guilt. Juliet had shown strength and kindness, qualities she never possessed. Juliet's courage made her realize that true power was kindness and integrity, not revenge. The court cheered for Juliet, finally seeing her as a true queen. Mrs. Grace and her daughters were banished from the palace. They left in shame, their heads bowed low. Kelvin, now king, made a firm decision. No more revenge, he declared. We will forgive and move forward. Juliet nodded, feeling lighter. With her enemies gone, Juliet finally felt at peace. She had faced betrayal, pain, and rejection, and had risen above it all. She knew her journey was far from over, but now she was a queen who ruled with love and strength. Her past no longer haunted her, her future was bright. Years passed, and Juliet's story became legend. She ruled with wisdom, kindness, and courage. Kelvin and Juliet watched their son grow into a noble young prince. They knew that from ashes, they had risen to create a new life, one filled with love, hope, and happiness. Juliet often reflected on her journey. From suffering to the throne, she thought, smiling. It was a long road, but I never gave up. Love and strength can conquer all. And so, Juliet and Kelvin lived happily ever after, their hearts forever grateful for the journey that made them stronger. Thank you for watching this story. Kindly share your thoughts in the comments section. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved ones. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Until I bring another story your way, bye.